Marcus Rodriguez pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway of Technovision Industries. The wheels made a soft squeaking sound on the smooth floor. It was almost 9 o'clock at night, and most people had gone home hours ago. But Marcus was just starting his workday. He had been cleaning these offices for 3 years now. Every night he came to work when the sun went down. He cleaned desks, emptied trash cans, and mopped floors. The work was hard, but it paid enough to take care of his daughter Sophia. That was all that mattered to him. Tonight was different, though. Walking beside him was 7-year-old Sophia, her small hand holding onto the side of his cart. Her dark hair was pulled back in 2 neat braids, and she wore her favorite purple dress. She looked around with wide, curious eyes at all the computers and machines. Marcus did not want to bring Sophia to work, but what choice did he have? Mrs. Garcia, the lady who usually watched Sophia at night, had called him that afternoon. She was sick and could not come. Marcus had called everyone he knew, but no one could help. He needed this job. So Sophia had to come with him. "Papa, what do all these computers do?" Sophia asked, pointing at a desk covered with 3 large monitors. "They help smart people solve problems," Marcus said quietly. He always spoke softly at work. He did not want to bother anyone. Sophia nodded like this made perfect sense to her. She had always been a smart little girl. Even when she was very small, she asked questions about everything. Her teachers said she was special. They said she thought about things in ways that surprised them. Marcus remembered when Sophia was 5 years old. She had looked at their broken toaster and figured out why it was not working. She told him the cord was loose inside. When he opened it up, she was right. A smart little girl, just like her mother had been. But Marcus tried not to think about Sophia's mother too much. Maria had died in a car accident 2 years ago. Since then, it had been just Marcus and Sophia against the world. He worked hard to give her everything she needed. He wanted her to have chances he never had. They walked past an office where 2 people were still working. The man and woman barely looked up from their computers. Marcus was used to this. Most people at Technovision did not really see him. He was just the janitor. He cleaned up after them, but they did not think about him as a real person with a family and dreams. Sophia saw everything, though. She noticed how the people dressed in nice clothes and had big offices. She saw the walls covered with charts and numbers that looked like a foreign language. She watched how everyone seemed to be thinking very hard about important things. "Papa, why do some people work during the day and you work at night?" Sophia asked. Marcus thought about how to explain this. "Different jobs happen at different times, Mija. The people who work here during the day need the offices to be clean when they arrive, so I clean them at night." "Do you like cleaning?" Sophia asked. Marcus smiled at his daughter. "I like taking care of you. The cleaning is just how I do that." They stopped at an office with a big window. Inside, there were whiteboards covered with drawings and numbers. Sophia pressed her nose against the glass, trying to understand what she was seeing. "Those look like puzzles," she said. "Maybe they are," Marcus said. He had no idea what the engineers at Technovision actually did. He knew they were smart people who went to fancy schools. He knew they made a lot of money. But what they did all day was a mystery to him. Marcus had only finished high school. He had wanted to go to college, but his family needed him to work. Then he met Maria, and Sophia came along. College became impossible, but he did not feel sorry for himself. He was proud to work hard for his family. As they walked deeper into the building, Sophia kept asking questions. She wanted to know about everything she saw. Why were some rooms bigger than others? What were all the cables for? Why did some computers have so many screens? Marcus answered what he could, but mostly he just listened to his daughter's curious mind at work. She had always been like this. When other kids her age were playing with toys, Sophia was taking things apart to see how they worked. She built towers with blocks that were so clever even adults were impressed. "Papa, can I help you clean?" Sophia asked. "You can watch," Marcus said, "but be careful not to touch anything important." He started his work in a small office. He emptied the trash can and wiped down the desk. Sophia watched everything he did. She saw how carefully he put things back exactly where they had been. She Noticed how he cleaned the computer screen without getting it too wet. "You are very good at this," Sophia said. Marcus felt proud. His daughter's opinion mattered more to him than anything else in the world. They moved to the next office, and then the next. Sophia walked quietly beside him, taking in everything. She saw how hard her father worked. She saw how he treated every office with respect, even though the people who worked there did not always treat him the same way. In one office, there were pictures on the desk. A man with his family at the beach. Sophia looked at the picture for a long time. "He has a daughter too," she said. "Yes, Mija. Most people here have families just like us." "Do they miss their families when they work late?" Marcus stopped cleaning for a moment. "I think they do. Like how I miss you when you work?" Marcus knelt down and hugged his daughter. "Yes, but tonight you are here with me, so tonight is special." Sophia smiled. She was happy to be with her father, even if it was at his work. She liked seeing what he did every night. She liked understanding his world better. As they continued through the building, Sophia's curiosity only grew stronger. She saw rooms full of computers, walls covered with numbers and charts, and machines that hummed and blinked with lights. Everything seemed magical and mysterious to her young mind. Little did Marcus know that bringing Sophia to work that night would change everything. His smart, curious daughter was about to see something that would surprise everyone at Technovision Industries. But for now, she was just a 7-year-old girl walking beside her father, asking questions and learning about the world around her. Dr. Patricia Wells rubbed her tired eyes and looked at her computer screen again. The numbers still did not make sense. She had been staring at the same code for 6 hours, and she was no closer to finding the answer than when she started. Patricia was one of the smartest people at Technovision Industries. She had graduated from MIT with the highest grades in her class. She had written papers that other scientists around the world read and respected. But right now, she felt like she knew nothing at all. The problem had started 3 months ago. Technovision was building a new computer program called an AI system. This program was supposed to be very smart. It would help doctors find diseases faster. It would help teachers know how students learn best. It would help farmers grow more food. The company had spent millions of dollars and years of work on this project. Everyone was excited about it. The newspapers had written stories about how it would change the world. Other companies wanted to buy it before it was even finished. But then something went wrong. The AI system started giving crazy answers. When they asked it simple questions, it would give answers that made no sense. When they showed it pictures of cats, sometimes it said they were dogs. When they gave it math problems, it would give wrong answers even though the math was easy. At first, Patricia and her team thought it was a small problem. They worked for a few days and expected to fix it quickly. But the problem was bigger than they thought. Every time they fixed one thing, something else would break. "Any luck today?" asked Dr. James Chen, walking into Patricia's office. James was another smart engineer. He had gone to Stanford University and had been working on computer programs for 15 years. "Nothing," Patricia said with a sigh. "I have checked every line of code 3 times. I cannot find what is wrong." James sat down in the chair across from her desk. He looked as tired as she felt. "I talked to the team from California today. They have the same problem. Their AI system is doing the same crazy things." This made Patricia feel even worse. Technovision had hired the best computer experts in the world to help them. These people had built AI systems for big companies like Google and Microsoft. If they could not fix the problem either, what hope did Patricia's team have? "What did Mr. Hayes say in the meeting today?" Patricia asked. James made a face like he had tasted something bad. "He is not happy. The investors are asking questions. They want to know why we cannot fix a computer program." Jonathan Hayes was the CEO of Technovision Industries. He was a smart businessman, but he did not understand the technical details of building AI systems. All he knew was that his company had promised to deliver something and they were failing. "How much time do we have?" Patricia asked. 2 weeks, James said quietly. "If we cannot fix it in 2 weeks, the investors might stop giving us money." Patricia felt sick to her stomach. If the investors stopped giving them money, the company might have to close. Hundreds of people would lose their jobs. All their work would be wasted. We need to try something different, Patricia said. What we are doing is not working. Like what? James asked. We have tried everything. We have checked the code line by line. We have tested every part of the system separately. We have brought in experts from 3 different companies. Nothing works. Patricia stood up and walked to the big whiteboard on her wall. It was covered with drawings and equations that showed how the AI system worked. She had drawn and erased things on this board so many times that some parts were hard to see. Maybe we are thinking about this wrong, she said. Maybe the problem is not in the code itself, maybe it is in how we designed the whole system. James looked at the whiteboard too. But we spent 2 years designing this system. We thought about every detail. We tested every idea. I know, Patricia said, but something is wrong and we cannot see it. In the office next door, Dr. Michael Torres was having the same problem. He had printed out hundreds of pages of computer code and spread them across his desk and floor. His office looked like a paper tornado had hit it. Michael had been working at Technovision for 8 years. He had helped build their first successful products. He was known for being able to solve problems that stumped everyone else. But this problem was different. The logic is perfect, he said to himself, reading through the code again. Every step makes sense, but the results are wrong. He had called his old professor at Carnegie Mellon University. Professor Williams had been building AI systems since before Michael was born. But even he could not figure out what was wrong. Sometimes, Professor Williams had said, the answer is right in front of us, but we cannot see it because we are looking too hard. Michael did not understand what that meant. How could someone look too hard at a problem? Down the hall, the rest of the engineering team was having another emergency meeting. 12 of the smartest people at the company sat around a big table, all looking frustrated and worried. Let's go through it one more time, said Sarah Kim, the team leader. Sarah had worked for Apple and Amazon before coming to Technovision. She was known for never giving up on a problem. The AI system takes in data, said Robert Martinez. It processes the data through our algorithm, then it gives an answer. The data going in is correct, said Lisa Wang. We have checked it 1,000 times. The algorithm follows all the rules of computer science, said David Johnson. I have compared it to systems that work perfectly. But the answers coming out are wrong, said Sarah. So something in the middle is broken. They had been having the same conversation for weeks. Everyone agreed on what should happen, but no one could figure out why it was not happening. In his big office on the top floor, Jonathan Hayes was on the phone with angry investors. These were rich people who had given Technovision money because they believed the AI system would make them even richer. Jonathan, we trusted you, said one investor. You promised us this would be ready 6 months ago. I understand your concerns, Hayes said, trying to stay calm. But building new technology takes time. We are very close to solving the problem. That is what you said last month, said another investor. And the month before that. How do we know you can fix it at all? Hayes did not have a good answer. He believed in his team. They were the smartest people he had ever worked with. But smart people had been wrong before. After he hung up the phone, Hayes sat alone in his office, looking out the window at the city below. He had started Technovision Industries 10 years ago with a dream of making technology that would help people. Now that dream felt like it might die because of one stubborn problem. He thought about all the people who worked for him. Patricia, James, Michael, Sarah, and dozens of others. They all had families. They all had bills to pay. If the company failed, they would all suffer. Hayes had built other companies before. He knew that sometimes projects failed, but this felt different. This AI system was supposed to be his greatest achievement. It was supposed to change the world. He picked up his phone and called Patricia. Any progress today? No, sir, Patricia said, but we are not giving up. Good, Hayes said, because giving up is not an option. But as he hung up the phone, Hayes wondered if his team was fighting a battle they could not win. The problem seemed impossible to solve. and time was running out. Sophia walked quietly beside her father as he pushed his cleaning cart into the main engineering lab. This room was bigger than all the other offices they had visited. It had 6 long tables covered with computers, and the walls were covered with whiteboards full of drawings and numbers. Marcus began his work emptying the trash cans and wiping down the desks. He moved carefully around all the expensive equipment. He had learned to be extra quiet in this room because sometimes the engineers worked very late here. Tonight, 3 people were still in the lab. Sophia watched them as her father cleaned. They all looked tired and frustrated. One woman kept typing on her computer, then shaking her head and deleting what she had written. A man was drawing on one of the whiteboards, then erasing it and starting over. Sophia had never seen adults look so confused before. At school, her teachers always seemed to know the answers to everything, but these grown-ups looked like they were struggling with something very difficult. "Papa," Sophia whispered. "Why do they look sad?" Marcus glanced at the engineers. "They are working on a hard problem, Mija. Sometimes work can be frustrating." Sophia nodded. She understood about hard problems. Sometimes her homework was difficult, too, but she had learned that when something was hard, it helped to look at it in a different way. As Marcus moved to clean near the back of the room, Sophia found herself standing in front of the biggest whiteboard. It was covered with drawings that looked like a maze. There were boxes connected by arrows and lots of words she did not understand. But Sophia was not afraid of things she did not understand. She was curious about them. She stood on her tiptoes to get a better look at the drawings. Some parts of the whiteboard were higher than she could see, but she could see enough to notice something interesting. Dr. Patricia Wells was the first to notice the little girl studying their work. Patricia had been at Technovision for 5 years, and she had never seen a child in the engineering lab before. She nudged Dr. James Chen, who was sitting beside her. "James, look," Patricia said with a small smile. "We have a visitor." James looked up from his computer and saw Sophia standing in front of their main algorithm diagram. The little girl was studying it with the same serious expression that the engineers used when they were thinking hard about a problem. "That's cute," James said. "The janitor brought his daughter to work." Dr. Michael Torres heard them talking and looked over too. When he saw Sophia staring at their whiteboard, he could not help but laugh a little. "Maybe she can solve our AI problem for us," Michael said jokingly. "We certainly have not been able to figure it out." Patricia laughed too. "Right. A 7-year-old is going to solve what 12 engineers with advanced degrees cannot solve." The 3 engineers found this idea funny. They had all gone to the best universities in the world. They had spent years studying computer science and mathematics. They had built systems that most people could never understand. But then Sophia did, something that surprised them. She pointed to a specific part of the whiteboard and turned around to face them. "Excuse me," Sophia said politely. Her voice was small but clear. "Can I ask you something about your drawing?" The engineers stopped laughing. They looked at each other, not sure what to say. Children did not usually ask questions about their work. Sure," Patricia said, trying to be nice. "What would you like to know?" Sophia pointed to a section of the diagram that showed the core of their AI algorithm. It was the part they had been working on for months, the part that was causing all their problems. "Why does this part go in a circle that never stops?" Sophia asked. The room became very quiet. Patricia felt her smile fade away. She looked at the part of the diagram Sophia was pointing to. She had drawn that section herself just a few hours ago. It showed how data moved through their AI system. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Patricia asked, her voice less confident than before. Sophia traced her finger along the arrows on the whiteboard. "See, the information goes here, then here, then here," she said, following the path. "But then it goes back to where it started, so it goes around and never gets to the end." James stood up and walked over to the whiteboard. He looked at exactly where Sophia was pointing. His face became very serious. "She's talking about the recursive loop in our main algorithm," he said quietly to Patricia. "I know what she's talking about," Patricia said, but her voice sounded strange, like she was starting to worry about something. Michael joined them at the whiteboard. All three engineers were now staring at the same section that Sophia had pointed to. "That's not a bug," Michael said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "That's a feature. The system is supposed to loop back and refine its answers." Sophia listened to the big words the adults were using. She did not understand all of them, but she understood the idea. "My dad always says that when you're cleaning in circles, you never get anywhere," Sophia said. "You just keep cleaning the same spot over and over. Maybe your computer is cleaning in circles too." The three engineers looked at each other. None of them said anything for a long moment. Patricia had designed that recursive loop herself. It was supposed to make the AI system smarter by having it check its own work over and over. But what if Sophia was right? What if the system was getting stuck checking and rechecking the same things? That's actually not a bad point," James said slowly. Marcus had been trying to stay out of the way while his daughter talked to the engineers. He could see that something was happening, but he did not understand what. He walked over to Sophia and gently put his hand on her shoulder. "Sophia, don't bother these people," he said quietly. "They have important work to do." "It's okay," Patricia said, but she sounded distracted. She was still staring at the whiteboard, thinking about what Sophia had said. "Papa, I was just asking about their drawing," Sophia said. "They have a part that goes in circles, and I was wondering, why?" Marcus looked at the whiteboard. To him, it just looked like a bunch of lines and boxes. He could not understand any of it. "I'm sorry if she bothered you," Marcus said to the engineers. "She asks a lot of questions." "She didn't bother us," Michael said, but he was still thinking about the recursive loop. Had they really overlooked something so simple? Sophia looked back at the whiteboard one more time. "When I do puzzles," she said, "sometimes I get stuck because I keep trying the same piece in the same place. But when I try it somewhere different, it works." Patricia felt a strange feeling in her stomach. She had been so focused on making their algorithm more complex and sophisticated. She had never considered that the problem might be something simple. "Sophia," Patricia said, kneeling down to the little girl's level, "when you do puzzles, what do you do when you get stuck?" Sophia thought about this seriously. "I stop trying so hard and look at the whole puzzle. Sometimes the answer is easy, but you can't see it when you're looking too close." James and Michael exchanged glances. They had been looking at their code so closely for so long that maybe they had missed something obvious. "Thank you for your question, Sophia," Patricia said. "You've given us something to think about." Sophia smiled. She was happy that she could help the nice adults with their problem. She did not know that her simple question about circles was about to change everything at Technovision Industries. Marcus finished his cleaning quickly. He could tell that the engineers wanted to get back to their work. As he and Sophia left the lab, he heard them talking in excited voices about loops and algorithms. "Did I help them, Papa?" Sophia asked as they walked down the hallway. "I think you might have, Mija," Marcus said. "You might have helped them more than you know." After Marcus and Sophia left the engineering lab, the three engineers stood in complete silence. They all stared at the whiteboard where Sophia had pointed out the recursive loop. The only sound in the room was the humming of computers and the quiet buzz of the fluorescent lights above them. Patricia felt her cheeks getting warm. She was embarrassed, but she was not sure why. A 7-year-old girl had asked a simple question about their work, and now Patricia could not stop thinking about it. "She's just a kid," Michael said finally. "She doesn't understand how AI systems work." But even as he said the words, Michael did not sound convinced. He kept looking at the part of the algorithm that Sophia had called a circle that never stops. James walked closer to the whiteboard. He picked up a marker and traced the path that Sophia had shown them with her finger. The data went into the algorithm, got processed, then looped back to be processed again. And again. And again. "How many times does it loop?" James asked. "It depends on the data," Patricia said. "Sometimes 10 times, sometimes 100 times. The system keeps refining the answer until it reaches a certain confidence level." "And what if it never reaches that confidence level?" James asked. Patricia opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She realized she did not have a good answer to that question. It always reaches the confidence level eventually, she said, but her voice sounded uncertain. Michael sat down at his computer and opened the diagnostic tools they used to monitor the AI system. He had looked at these same reports hundreds of times over the past 3 months, but now he was looking for something specific. "I want to check something," he said, typing quickly. "Let me see how long the system spends in that recursive loop." Patricia and James gathered around Michael's computer screen. They watched as he pulled up data from the AI system's recent test runs. "Look at this," Michael said, pointing to a graph on his screen. In this test, the system processed the same piece of data 847 times before moving on. 847 times? Patricia said. That seems like a lot. And here, Michael continued, clicking to another test. 203 times. And this one, 2,556 times. James felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. How long does each processing cycle take? About 0.3 seconds, Michael said. He was quiet for a moment while he did the math in his head. So processing one piece of data 2,556 times would take about 12 minutes. 12 minutes for one piece of data? Patricia said. No wonder the system is so slow. But that was not the worst part. Michael kept looking through the diagnostic data, and what he found made him feel sick. Look at this test from last week, he said. The system processed one piece of data for 6 hours straight. It never reached the confidence level. It just kept looping and looping until we manually stopped it. Patricia sat down in a chair. She felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. The recursive loop that she had designed to make the system smarter was actually making it stupid. Instead of refining answers, it was getting stuck trying to perfect answers that could never be perfect. So when Sophia said it goes in circles that never stop, James said slowly, she was exactly right. They all thought about this for a moment. A 7-year-old girl had looked at their algorithm for 30 seconds and identified the core problem that had been plaguing them for 3 months. But we're not cleaning, Patricia said defensively. We're processing data. It's completely different. Is it, though? Michael asked. Sophia said her dad told her that cleaning in circles means you never get anywhere. Isn't that exactly what our system is doing? Processing the same data over and over without making progress? Patricia wanted to argue, but she could not think of a good argument. The analogy was uncomfortably accurate. We need to test this, James said. We need to modify the algorithm to limit the number of loops and see what happens. But if we limit the loops, the system might not be as accurate, Patricia said. Patricia, Michael said gently, the system isn't accurate now. It gives wrong answers because it gets stuck in these loops. Maybe if we let it give a good answer quickly instead of trying to find a perfect answer slowly, it will work better. Patricia knew he was right, but it was hard to admit. She had spent months designing that recursive loop. She had been proud of how sophisticated it was. The idea that a child could see its flaws in 30 seconds was humbling. Let's run a quick test, James said. We can modify just one small part of the algorithm and see what happens. They worked together for the next hour, making small changes to the code. Instead of letting the system loop until it reached a high confidence level, they limited it to just 5 loops maximum. Okay, Michael said. Let's test it with the same data that's been giving us problems. They ran the test and watched the results appear on their computer screens. Instead of taking hours to process the data, the system gave an answer in less than a minute. And the answer is, Patricia said, reading from her screen. Correct. They all stared at the screen in disbelief. Run it again, James said. Maybe that was just luck. They ran 10 more tests. Every single answer was correct, and every answer came back in less than a minute. I can't believe this, Patricia said. We've been working on this problem for 3 months. We brought in experts from 3 different companies. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a 7-year-old girl solved it by asking one simple question. Michael laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Do you know how this makes us look? We're supposed to be the smartest people in the company. We have degrees from the best universities in the world, and we got outsmarted by a janitor's daughter. She didn't outsmart us, James said. She just saw something we missed because we were too close to the problem. But Patricia was not sure about that. Maybe Sophia had outsmarted them. Maybe her question about circles was smarter than any of their complex theories and sophisticated algorithms. "What are we going to tell Mr. Hayes?" Patricia asked. "The truth," Michael said. "That we found the problem and fixed it." "And if he asks how we found it?" They all looked at each other. None of them wanted to admit that a child had solved the problem they could not solve. "We tell him that sometimes fresh perspective is valuable," James said. "We don't have to explain exactly where the perspective came from." Patricia felt bad about not giving Sophia credit, but she also felt embarrassed. How would it look to their colleagues? How would it look to the investors? The brilliant engineers at Technovision Industries needed help from a 7-year-old to solve their biggest problem. "But we should do something for her," Patricia said. "And for her father. They helped us more than they know." "Like what?" Michael asked. Patricia thought about Marcus, quietly cleaning their offices every night while they worked on their important projects. She thought about how politely he had tried to keep Sophia from bothering them, not knowing that Sophia was actually saving their company. "I don't know yet," Patricia said. "But we owe them something." As they continued testing their modified algorithm, Patricia kept thinking about Sophia's question. Why had she seen the problem so clearly when the engineers had missed it completely? Maybe it was because Sophia was not afraid to ask simple questions. Maybe it was because she did not know enough about computer science to assume that complex problems needed complex solutions. Or maybe it was because she approached the problem without any ego or pride to protect. "You know what bothers me most about this?" James said as they watched another successful test run. "What?" Michael asked. "How many other simple solutions are we missing because we're too proud to ask simple questions?" Patricia did not have an answer to that question, but she knew it was something she would be thinking about for a long time. Sophia woke up the next morning and got ready for school just like any other day. She brushed her teeth, put on her school uniform, and ate the breakfast her father made for her. But as she walked to school, she kept thinking about the nice people she had met at her father's work. She remembered the big whiteboard with all the drawings on it. She remembered how the adults looked confused and frustrated, and she remembered her question about the circles. At school, Sophia's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed that she seemed distracted during math class. "Sophia, is everything okay?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked. "I was just thinking about something," Sophia said. "Mrs. Rodriguez, why do people sometimes make things more complicated than they need to be?" Mrs. Rodriguez was surprised by the question. Sophia always asked thoughtful questions, but this one seemed very deep for a 7-year-old. "What do you mean, Sophia?" "Last night I saw some grown-ups working on a problem," Sophia said. "They had lots of complicated drawings and big words, but the problem seemed simple to me. Sometimes when we know a lot about something, we can forget to look at it in simple ways," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "What did the problem look like to you?" "Like they were going in circles," Sophia said. "My papa always says that going in circles means you're not getting anywhere." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "Your papa sounds very wise." Sophia nodded. "He is. He knows lots of things even though people don't always listen to him." Meanwhile, at Technovision Industries, the engineering team was having the most productive day they had experienced in months. The AI system was working perfectly with the changes they had made based on Sophia's observation. Dr. Patricia Wells ran test after test, and every single one came back with correct results. The system was faster, more accurate, and more reliable than it had ever been. "This is incredible," she said to Dr. James Chen. "Response time is down by 95%. Accuracy is up to 99.7%. The system is performing better than our best projections, all because we limited the recursive loops," James said, shaking his head in amazement. Dr. Michael Torres joined them, holding a stack of printouts. "I've been analyzing the system's behavior over the past 24 hours, he said. "The improvement is not just in speed and accuracy. The system is also using much less computer power. We're saving thousands of dollars in processing costs." Patricia felt a mix of emotions. She was thrilled that they had solved the problem, but she was also humbled by how it had happened. All their advanced degrees, all their years of experience, All their sophisticated tools and techniques had not helped them see what a 7-year-old girl saw in 30 seconds. "We need to document exactly what we changed," James said. "Mr. Hayes is going to want a full report." "What exactly are we going to tell him?" Michael asked. "That we spent 3 months overthinking a problem that had a simple solution?" Patricia thought about this. She knew they could write a technical report that made their solution sound complex and sophisticated. They could use big words and complicated explanations. They could make it seem like they had discovered something revolutionary through advanced research, but that would not be honest. "We'd tell him the truth," Patricia said. "We had designed a recursive loop that was too aggressive. It was causing the system to get stuck processing the same data over and over. We fixed it by limiting the number of loops." "And how did we figure that out?" James asked. Patricia was quiet for a moment. She thought about Sophia standing on her tiptoes to see the whiteboard, asking her innocent question about circles. She thought about Marcus apologizing for his daughter's curiosity, not knowing that her curiosity had just saved his company. "Someone pointed out that our algorithm was going in circles," Patricia said. And they were right. At lunchtime, Patricia found herself thinking more about Sophia's simple wisdom. When you're cleaning in circles, you never get anywhere. The more Patricia thought about it, the more profound it seemed. How many times in her career had she been guilty of going in circles? How many times had she made problems more complicated than they needed to be? How many times had she overlooked simple solutions because she was looking for complex ones? Patricia had always been proud of her intelligence. She had always valued complexity and sophistication. She had been taught that the best solutions were elegant and mathematically beautiful. But Sophia had shown her that sometimes the best solutions were just simple. That afternoon, Patricia decided to do something she had never done before. She went to the Human Resources Department and asked about Marcus Rodriguez, the night janitor. "I'd like to know more about him," she told the HR manager. "He has a daughter who asked a very insightful question about our project." The HR manager looked surprised. "Marcus, he's one of our best employees, very reliable, very hardworking. He's been here for 3 years. Why do you ask?" "His daughter helped us solve a technical problem," Patricia said. "I want to make sure we recognize that somehow." "That's unusual," the HR manager said, "but I can pull his file if you'd like." Patricia learned that Marcus worked from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. every night. He had perfect attendance and had never received a single complaint. His supervisor described him as quiet but thorough and respectful of everyone's workspace. She also learned that Marcus was a single father raising his daughter alone. His wife had died in a car accident 2 years ago. He had no family in the area and relied on babysitters to watch Sophia while he worked. Reading Marcus's file made Patricia feel even worse about how she and her colleagues had initially reacted to Sophia. They had laughed at the idea that a janitor's daughter could help them with their problem. They had been condescending and dismissive, but Marcus had raised a daughter who was curious, thoughtful, and brave enough to ask questions. Sophia had looked at their problem without any preconceptions or biases. She had seen clearly what they had been too proud to see. That evening, Patricia stayed late at work again, but this time she was not there because she was frustrated with a problem she could not solve. She was there because she wanted to see Marcus and Sophia again. At 9:15 p.m., she heard the familiar sound of Marcus's cleaning cart in the hallway. She walked out of her office and saw him starting his evening routine. "Excuse me, Marcus?" she said. Marcus looked surprised to see her. He was used to engineers ignoring him, not seeking him out for conversation. "Yes, ma'am?" he said politely. "Is Sophia with you tonight?" "No, ma'am. I found a babysitter for tonight." Patricia felt disappointed. She had wanted to thank Sophia personally for her help. "Marcus, I wanted you to know that your daughter helped us solve a very important problem." "Last night," Patricia said. Marcus looked confused. "Sophia, but she's just a little girl. How could she help with your work?" "She asked a very good question about our algorithm," Patricia said. It made us think about our problem in a new way. Because of her question, we were able to fix something that had been broken for months. Marcus was quiet for a moment. He was clearly surprised by this news. She does ask a lot of questions, he said finally. Sometimes I tell her not to bother people, but she's just curious about everything. Don't ever tell her to stop asking questions, Patricia said. Her curiosity is a gift. Last night it saved our project. Marcus smiled. It was the first time Patricia had ever seen him smile at work. She gets that from her mother, he said. Maria was always asking questions, always trying to understand how things worked. Patricia realized that she knew almost nothing about the people who cleaned her office every night. She had never thought about their families, their dreams, their lives outside of work. Marcus, thank you for bringing Sophia last night, she said. And thank you for raising such a smart, thoughtful daughter. As Patricia walked back to her office, she thought about all the assumptions she had made about Marcus and Sophia. She had judged them based on their clothes, their job, their economic status. She had almost missed out on Sophia's insight because she had not expected wisdom to come from a janitor's daughter. It was a lesson she would never forget. Jonathan Hayes had not been sleeping well for weeks. As the CEO of Technovision Industries, he felt the weight of everyone's expectations on his shoulders. The company's future depended on the AI project, and every day it remained broken was another day closer to disaster. On Wednesday evening, Hayes decided to make another late-night visit to the engineering lab. He often did this when he was worried about a project. He would walk through the offices, check on his team, and try to understand what was happening. As he rode the elevator to the engineering floor, Hayes thought about the phone call he'd had with investors that afternoon. They were losing patience. They wanted results, not excuses. Mr. Hayes, one investor had said, we've given you millions of dollars and 2 years of time. When will you deliver what you promised? Hayes had given them his usual answer about complex technology taking time to perfect. But privately, he was starting to worry that maybe the problem could not be solved at all. The elevator doors opened, and Hayes walked down the quiet hallway toward the engineering lab. Most of the offices were dark, but he could see lights on in the main lab. That was good. His team was still working hard, but as he got closer to the lab, Hayes heard something unexpected. Voices, and one of them sounded very young. Hayes paused outside the lab door and listened. He could hear Dr. Patricia Wells talking to someone, but he could also hear a small voice asking questions, a child's voice. Hayes opened the door and stepped into the lab. What he saw surprised him completely. Standing in front of the main whiteboard was a little girl with dark hair and braids. She was pointing at their algorithm diagram and talking to Patricia, James, and Michael. Beside her stood a man in a janitor's uniform holding a cleaning cart. Excuse me, Hayes said. What's going on here? Everyone in the room froze. The engineers looked embarrassed to be caught with a child in their secure work area. The janitor looked terrified to see the CEO of the company. Mr. Hayes, Patricia said quickly, I can explain. But before Patricia could say anything else, the little girl turned around and looked directly at Hayes. She was not afraid at all. Hello, she said politely. Are you the boss of this company? Hayes was so surprised by her directness that he almost smiled. Yes, I am. I'm Jonathan Hayes. What's your name? I'm Sophia Rodriguez, she said. This is my papa, Marcus. He cleans your offices. Hayes looked at Marcus, who was standing very still like he was afraid to move. I'm sorry, sir, Marcus said quietly. My babysitter got sick, and I had to bring Sophia with me. She won't bother anyone. Actually, Patricia said, stepping forward, Sophia has been very helpful. She asked us a question about our algorithm that helped us solve the AI problem. Hayes felt his heart skip a beat. What do you mean solved? The system is working perfectly now, James said. We've been running tests all day. The accuracy is at 99.7%, and the response time is faster than we ever hoped for. Hayes stared at his engineering team. Are you telling me that you solved the problem that's been plaguing us for 3 months? Yes, sir, Michael said. We identified the issue with our recursive loop and fixed it. How? Hayes asked. What changed? Yesterday you told me you were no closer to a solution. The engineers looked at each other. None of them wanted to explain that a 7-year-old had pointed out their mistake. Sophia, however, had no problem explaining. They had a part of their computer program that went in circles, she said to Hayes. My papa taught me that when you clean in circles, you never get anywhere. So I asked them why their computer was cleaning in circles. Hayes looked down at Sophia, then at his engineering team, then back at Sophia. You solved our AI problem by comparing it to cleaning? He asked. Sort of, Sophia said. The computer was doing the same work over and over and never finishing, like when you clean the same spot too many times instead of cleaning the whole house. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. He was trying to process what he had just heard. His company had spent millions of dollars hiring the smartest engineers in the world to build this AI system. They had consulted with experts from 3 different companies. They had worked around the clock for months, and a janitor's 7-year-old daughter had solved the problem with an analogy about cleaning. Mr. Hayes, Marcus said nervously, I'm really sorry about this. Sophia didn't mean to interfere with your important work. Hayes looked at Marcus. He saw a man who was clearly worried about losing his job. A man who was working the night shift to support his daughter. A man who had raised a child, curious and brave enough to ask questions that stumped PhD engineers. Marcus, Hayes said, your daughter didn't interfere with our work. She saved it. Hayes turned to his engineering team. Show me the test results. For the next hour, Patricia, James, and Michael demonstrated how well the AI system was working with their modifications. Every test produced perfect results. The system was faster, more accurate, and more efficient than their original specifications had required. This is incredible, Hayes said. This is better than what we promised our investors. While the adults talked about technical details, Sophia wandered around the lab, looking at all the equipment with curious eyes. She asked Marcus quiet questions about what different machines did, and he answered as best he could. Hayes noticed how patient Marcus was with his daughter's questions. He noticed how politely Sophia behaved, even though she was clearly fascinated by everything around her. This was not a disruptive child who had been allowed to run wild in a professional environment. This was a well-behaved little girl with an active mind. Sophia, Hayes said, interrupting his conversation with the engineers. Can you come here for a moment? Sophia walked over to him with confidence. She was not intimidated by his expensive suit or his important title. Can you tell me exactly what you noticed about our algorithm? Hayes asked. Sophia thought for a moment, trying to remember exactly what she had seen. There was a drawing on the board that looked like arrows going in. A circle, she said. The arrows went from one box to another box, then to another box, then back to the first box. It looked like they would go around forever and never reach the end. And what made you think that was a problem? Hayes asked. Because if you're trying to get somewhere but you keep going in circles, you'll never arrive, Sophia said. It's like if I was trying to walk home from school, but I kept walking around the same block over and over. I would never get home. Hayes nodded slowly. The analogy was simple, but it was also perfect. Their AI system had been trying to reach a conclusion, but it kept getting stuck in computational loops that prevented it from moving forward. That's a very smart observation, Sophia, Hayes said. You helped our engineers solve a very important problem. Sophia smiled. She was happy that she had been helpful to the nice adults. Hayes looked at Marcus, who was watching the conversation with amazement. Marcus had never imagined that his daughter would be having a conversation with the CEO of a major technology company. Marcus, Hayes said, how long have you been working here? 3 years, sir, Marcus said. And in those 3 years, have you ever had any ideas about how we could improve our company? Marcus looked surprised by the question. I'm just the janitor, sir. I don't know anything about technology. But you know about efficiency, Hayes said. You know about solving problems. You know about getting work done. And clearly, you've taught your daughter to think carefully about problems and ask good questions. Hayes made a decision that would change everything for Marcus and Sophia. Marcus, I'd like to offer you a different position in our company. Our Facilities management department needs someone who understands how this building operates and how to keep everything running smoothly. It would be a day job with better pay and benefits. Marcus stared at Hayes in shock. Sir, I don't understand. Your daughter helped save this company, Hayes said, and she could only do that because you raised her to be curious, thoughtful, and brave. Those are qualities we need more of at Technovision. As Hayes looked at Sophia and Marcus, he realized something important. He had been so focused on hiring people with impressive degrees and fancy credentials that he had forgotten to value wisdom, curiosity, and common sense. Sophia had solved their problem not because she was educated in computer science, but because she approached it with fresh eyes and simple logic. Maybe Technovision needed more people who could see clearly and ask good questions, regardless of their educational background. 2 weeks after Sophia's visit to the engineering lab, Jonathan Hayes called an all-hands meeting for every employee at Technovision Industries. This was unusual. Hayes typically only held company-wide meetings for major announcements like product, launches, or quarterly results. Every employee gathered in the large conference room on the first floor. Engineers sat next to salespeople. Marketing managers sat next to security guards. Administrative assistants sat next to senior executives. And in the front row, Marcus Rodriguez sat with his daughter Sophia, both looking nervous about being in front of so many people. Hayes stood at the front of the room with a microphone in his hand. He looked out at all the faces staring back at him, some curious, some worried, some excited. 3 weeks ago, Hayes began, our company was in serious trouble. Our most important project, the AI system that represents 2 years of work and millions of dollars in investment, was failing. Our best engineers couldn't solve the problem. Our external consultants couldn't solve the problem. Our investors were threatening to pull their funding. The room was completely quiet. Everyone knew about the AI project's difficulties, but hearing Hayes speak about it so directly was uncommon. Today I'm happy to announce that our AI system is not only working perfectly, but it's performing better than our original specifications. We've already received pre-orders worth over $50 million, and we'll be launching the product next month. The room erupted in applause. People were smiling, laughing, and congratulating each other. This was the kind of news everyone had been hoping to hear. Hayes waited for the applause to die down before continuing. But I didn't call this meeting just to share good news, he said. I called it to tell you how we solved the problem, because I think it teaches us something important about our company. Hayes gestured toward Sophia and Marcus in the front row. The solution came from Sophia Rodriguez, the 7-year-old daughter of our night janitor, Marcus Rodriguez. Sophia visited our engineering lab one evening and asked a simple question about our algorithm. Her question helped our engineers see the problem in a new way and fix it within 24 hours. The room was silent again, but this time the silence felt different. People were surprised, confused, and some were clearly skeptical. Dr. Patricia Wells stood up from her seat in the middle of the room. If I may, she said, I'd like to explain exactly what happened. Hayes nodded and handed her the microphone. For 3 months, our team had been struggling with a recursive loop in our AI algorithm, Patricia said. We had designed it to be sophisticated and thorough, but it was actually causing the system to get stuck processing the same data over and over again. Patricia looked at Sophia, who was listening carefully, even though she didn't understand all the technical words. Sophia looked at our algorithm diagram and asked why part of it went in circles that never stopped. She said her father had taught her that cleaning in circles means you never get anywhere. That simple observation helped us realize that our algorithm was indeed going in circles, wasting time and resources without making progress. Patricia paused and looked around the room. Sophia's question was more insightful than any analysis we had done in 3 months of troubleshooting. She saw the problem clearly because she approached it without assumptions or preconceptions. Dr. James Chen stood up next. I want to add something, he said. We initially laughed when Sophia started, looking at our work. We thought it was cute that a janitor's daughter was trying to understand our sophisticated algorithm. We were condescending and dismissive. James looked directly at Marcus and Sophia. We were wrong to react that way. Sophia's question saved our project and possibly our company. Her curiosity and fresh perspective were exactly what we needed. Hayes took the microphone back. This experience has made me realize that we have a problem at Technovision, he said. We've created a culture where we only value certain types of intelligence and certain types of credentials. We hire people from prestigious universities and assume they have all the answers. We ignore input from people who don't have advanced degrees. Hayes gestured toward the entire room. But wisdom and good ideas can come from anywhere. They can come from a janitor's daughter who sees our problems with fresh eyes. They can come from a security guard who notices patterns we miss. They can come from an administrative assistant who understands efficiency better than our consultants. Sarah Kim, the engineering team leader, raised her hand. Mr. Hayes, what are you proposing we do differently? Several things, Hayes said. First, we're implementing a new program called Fresh Eyes. Every month, we'll invite people from different departments to look at problems that have been stumped our experts. A janitor might see something an engineer misses. A receptionist might understand customer needs better than our market research team. People in the room started murmuring to each other. Some seemed excited by this idea, while others looked skeptical. Second, Hayes continued, we're creating mentorship programs that work in both directions. Yes, senior employees will mentor junior employees, but junior employees and people from different backgrounds will also share their perspectives with senior staff. Lisa Wang, a software engineer, stood up. What about educational requirements for technical positions? She asked. Are we going to start hiring people without relevant degrees? We're going to start valuing problem-solving ability as much as formal education, Hayes said. We'll still require technical expertise for technical roles, but we'll also look for people who can think creatively and ask good questions. Hayes looked at Marcus. Marcus, would you stand up, please? Marcus stood up slowly, clearly uncomfortable being the center of attention. Marcus has been our night janitor for 3 years, Hayes said. In that time, he's never missed a day of work. He's never received a complaint. He's been respectful, reliable, and professional. And he's raised a daughter who helped save our company. Hayes paused. Effective immediately, Marcus is being promoted to our facilities management department. He'll be working days instead of nights, with a significant increase in salary and full benefits for his family. The room erupted in applause again. Marcus looked shocked. Sophia clapped excitedly, not fully understanding what had happened, but knowing it was something good. But that's not all, Hayes said. We're also establishing the Sophia Fund, a scholarship program for children from working-class families who want to pursue education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Hayes looked at Sophia. Sophia, would you like to say something to everyone? Sophia stood up and took the microphone. She was not afraid, even though hundreds of adults were looking at her. Thank you for letting me visit the engineering lab, she said in her clear young voice. I like asking questions about how things work. I think asking questions is important because that's how you learn new things. She paused and looked around the room. My papa taught me that everyone has something to teach and everyone has something to learn. I learned about computers from the nice engineers, and maybe they learned something from me too. Sophia handed the microphone back to Hayes and sat down. The room was quiet for a moment, then burst into the loudest applause of the entire meeting. Dr. Michael Torres stood up. Mr. Hayes, I want to commit to something publicly, he said. From now on, when my team gets stuck on a problem, we're going to ask for help from people outside our department. We're going to value fresh perspectives over ego. Other people in the room began standing up and making similar commitments. The sales director promised to include customer service representatives in product development meetings. The marketing manager committed to asking security guards about customer behavior, patterns they observed. The HR director promised to create opportunities for employees from different departments to share ideas. As the meeting concluded, people gathered around Marcus and Sophia to congratulate them and ask questions. Sophia answered everyone politely, excited to meet so many new people. Hayes watched the interactions and felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt proud of his company's culture. For the first time since founding Technovision, he felt like they were building something that valued human wisdom over just technical expertise. Dr. Patricia Wells approached Marcus as people were leaving the meeting. Marcus, she said, I want to personally apologize for how we initially reacted to Sophia's questions. We were arrogant and dismissive. Marcus shook his head. You don't need to apologize. You were kind to Sophia, and you listened to her. That's what matters. Still, Patricia said, I learned something important from this experience. Intelligence comes in many forms, and wisdom doesn't require a PhD. As employees filed out of the conference room, many stopped to shake hands with Marcus or to say hello to Sophia. For the first time since starting work at Technovision, Marcus felt like he was truly part of the company community. Sophia, meanwhile, was already asking Hayes questions about how the company worked and what other problems they were trying to solve. Her curiosity was as strong as ever, and now everyone at Technovision knew that her questions were worth listening to. 6 months after Sophia's question changed everything at Technovision Industries, the company looked completely different. Not just in terms of success, but in terms of culture and values. The AI system that Sophia had helped fix was now the most successful product in Technovision's history. Companies around the world were using it to solve problems in medicine, education, agriculture, and dozens of other fields. The system that had once been stuck in endless loops was now helping doctors diagnose diseases faster, helping teachers understand how students learned best, and helping farmers grow more food with less water. But the real change at Technovision was not in their technology. It was in how people treated each other and how they approached problems. Marcus Rodriguez was thriving in his new position in facilities management. He worked during the day now, which meant he could take Sophia to school in the morning and help her with homework in the evening. His salary had increased by 60%, and for the first time since his wife died, Marcus felt financially secure. More importantly, Marcus felt respected at work. His colleagues asked for his opinions about building efficiency and workplace organization. His experience keeping the building running smoothly at night had given him insights that the engineering team found valuable. Marcus sees things we miss, Dr. Patricia Wells told Jonathan Hayes during a monthly review meeting. He notices patterns in how people use space, how equipment breaks down, how workflows could be improved. He's become one of our most valuable problem solvers. Sophia had become a regular visitor to Technovision. Every Wednesday afternoon after school, Marcus would bring her to the office. She would do her homework in the break room, then visit different departments to ask questions and share observations. The engineering team had learned to value Sophia's perspective. When they got stuck on difficult problems, they would explain them to Sophia in simple terms. Often, her questions would help them see solutions they had missed. Sophia has taught us to explain our work in plain language, Dr. James Chen said. If we can't explain something to a 7-year-old, maybe we don't understand it as well as we think we do. But Sophia's influence extended far beyond the engineering department. She had visited the marketing team and asked why their advertisements used so many complicated words. Her question led them to create simpler, more effective marketing campaigns that increased sales by 25%. She had visited the customer service department and asked why customers had to push so many buttons when they called for help. Her observation led to a streamlined phone system that reduced customer wait times and increased satisfaction ratings. She had even visited the accounting department and asked why they needed so many different forms for simple requests. Her question led to a digital system that reduced paperwork by 40% and saved the company thousands of dollars in administrative costs. Every time Sophia visits a department, productivity improves, Hayes told the board of directors during their quarterly meeting. She asks the questions that adults are afraid to ask or too proud to ask. The Fresh Eyes program that Hayes had, announced at the all-hands meeting, had become one of Technovision's most successful initiatives. Every month, employees from different departments would spend time observing and asking questions about areas outside their expertise. The security guard had noticed that the most productive employees took breaks at certain times and suggested scheduling important meetings to avoid those times. The receptionist had observed patterns in customer complaints and suggested product improvements that the engineering team had missed. The maintenance staff had identified several ways to reduce energy costs that the facilities management team had overlooked. We've saved over $2 million this year just from suggestions that came through the Fresh Eyes program, Hayes reported to investors. When you value different perspectives, you find solutions you never would have discovered otherwise. The mentorship programs had also transformed the company culture. Senior engineers were learning from junior employees about new technologies and fresh approaches. Experienced managers were learning from new hires about changing customer expectations and market trends. Dr. Patricia Wells had become one of the strongest advocates for these cultural changes. She had started a weekly lunch program where employees from different departments could share meals and ideas. I used to think that intelligence was measured by degrees and credentials, Patricia told a gathering of new employees. But I learned from a 7-year-old girl that intelligence is really about curiosity, observation, and the courage to ask simple questions. The Sophia Fund Scholarship Program had received applications from over 500 children in its first year. The program provided full scholarships for college education to children from working-class families who showed aptitude and interest in science and technology fields. "We're not just looking for kids with perfect grades," said Dr. Sarah Kim, who managed the scholarship program. "We're looking for kids who ask good questions, who see problems differently, who have fresh perspectives to offer." The first recipient of a Sophia Fund scholarship was a 10-year-old girl whose father worked as a grocery store clerk. She had written an essay about how stores could reduce food waste by changing how they organized their shelves. Her observations were so insightful that Technovision partnered with a major grocery chain to test her ideas. "Sophia inspired us to look for intelligence in unexpected places," Hayes explained to a conference of business leaders. "We've discovered that breakthrough thinking often comes from people who haven't been taught that certain problems are impossible to solve." Sophia herself was growing and learning too. Her teachers at school noticed that she had become even more confident about asking questions and sharing ideas. Her curiosity about how things worked had expanded to include questions about how people work together and how organizations could be improved. "I want to be an engineer when I grow up," Sophia told her father one evening as they walked home from Technovision. "But I also want to help people learn how to ask better questions." Marcus smiled. "You're already doing that, Miha." Sophia's influence had spread beyond Technovision as well. Hayes had been invited to speak at conferences about corporate culture and innovation. He always told Sophia's story as an example of how companies could benefit from valuing diverse perspectives. "Sophia Rodriguez taught us that wisdom doesn't require credentials," Hayes would tell audiences of CEOs and business leaders. "Sometimes the most valuable insights come from people who approach problems with fresh eyes and honest questions." Other companies had started implementing similar programs based on Technovision's success. The fresh eyes concept had been adopted by dozens of corporations, leading to innovations and cost savings across multiple industries. But perhaps the most important change was in how Technovision employees treated each other. The janitors, security guards, receptionists, and maintenance staff were no longer invisible. Their opinions were sought and valued. Their perspectives were considered important. "We used to have a hierarchy where only certain people's ideas mattered," said Lisa Wang, who had been promoted to senior engineer. "Now we understand that good ideas can come from anyone, at any level, in any department." On the 1-year anniversary of Sophia's first visit to the engineering lab, Technovision held a celebration. The entire company gathered in the main conference room, which had been decorated with pictures showing the improvements and innovations that had resulted from the Fresh Eyes program. Hayes stood at the front of the room with Sophia and Marcus beside him. "A year ago, our company was struggling," Hayes said. "We had technical problems we couldn't solve, and we had cultural problems we didn't even recognize." He looked at Sophia, who was now 8 years old and even more confident than before. "Sophia asked one simple question that not only solved our technical problem, but helped us solve our cultural problem too. She taught us that everyone has something valuable to contribute." Sophia took the microphone. "Thank you for listening to my questions," she said. "I've learned that asking questions is not just about getting answers. It's about helping everyone think better together." She paused and looked around the room at all the faces looking back at her. "My papa taught me that everyone is important and everyone has something to teach." I think that's what makes a company really successful, when everyone feels important and everyone gets to share what they know. As applause filled the room, Hayes reflected on how much had changed since that night when he walked into the engineering lab and found a little girl pointing at their whiteboard. Technovision had become more than just a successful technology company. They had become a model for how organizations could value human wisdom over credentials, how they could benefit from diverse perspectives, and how they could create cultures where everyone's contributions mattered. And it all started with a 7-year-old girl who wasn't afraid to ask why something went in circles that never stopped. Sophia's question had broken more than just a recursive loop in computer code. It had broken down the barriers between departments, between education levels, between different types of intelligence. It had created a company where curiosity was valued more than credentials, where fresh perspectives were sought rather than dismissed.